Previously on Randomized Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. This is Kyle Ogren, and this is the star of the show, Illya Mise. Kyle, why are you scared of a waterfall? That's like your whole domain. Save the world by gathering the time gears and placing them atop the huge ziggurat. Hey, I need to make another Mystery Dungeon video. Can you bring Illya back?
Oh, okay.
Illya Mise and Kyle Ogren, the two members of Team Bugfish, will now be attempting their guild graduation exam, which involves heading into the deepest depths of a dungeon and confronting the Grandmaster of all things bad. Ooh. Of course, the dungeon they're heading to has a new randomized name, Ligma Staith. Haha, very witty. Are you kidding me? Quick reminder, everything in this Explorers of Skyrun has been randomized. Movesets, abilities, shop items, NPCs, wild Pokemon, and of course the dungeons themselves. Ligma Staith served as the perfect reintroduction to all those wacky randomizer phenomena. On the very first floor, Illya immediately found the Golden Mask, one of the rarest items in the game. And on floor 3, Kecleon was straight up selling the Manaphy egg. Does this count as trafficking? Throw in a robbery and a Sudowoodo dropping a Draco, and you've got the quintessential randomized PMD experience. At Dungeon's End, Illya and Kyle bumped into Mudkip and Hippopotas. Two townsfolk headed to the Woody Marsh, as Hippopotas wanted to evolve. They didn't seem to have a clue about the so-called Grandmaster of all things bad, however, likely because it was all made up by Guildmaster Flaffy as a way to justify the entire guild jumping Team Bugfish at the bottom of a pit. What a wild way to do an exam. Imagine wrapping up your driving test by fighting everyone at the drive test center in the parking lot. Now that's just an oxymoron. You would think that Team Bugfish is at a significant numbers disadvantage here, but not really. Illya is a total beast who one-taps most foes and has cosmic power to fortify her defenses, while Kyle has what I like to call the vacuum charge combo. Two moves, Vacuum Wave and Discharge, that hit every foe in the room and have been linked together to activate immediately one after the other. With that and Kyle's sky-high special attack stat, he can effortlessly clear out the entire room of oh no. Fortunately, Lightning Rod won't be an issue any longer, as Tropius gets deleted shortly afterward by a single Illya Leech Life, while Kyle does the same to Furret with close combat. After taking a couple of paltry hits, Illya flattens Vulpix, while Kyle can finally unleash the full extent of his patented Vacuum Charge combo. Are you kidding me? There's a second Pokemon with Lightning Rod in this fight? To add further insult, the enemy Burmy clicks Dark Void, putting Team Bugfish to sleep. Illya eventually wakes up 2 turns later, eviscerating Burmy with Rock Climb, then repeats the maneuver against Flareon. Kyle finally wakes up too, and despite being on his metaphorical last legs, manages to get off a full Vacuum Charge combo, sending Deoxys, Sceptile, and Wartortle back to the guild. That just leaves one foe remaining, Linoone. Wait, when did you get here? I don't remember a Linoone being in the guild. So, it turns out Flaffy somehow transformed into a Linoone during the transition from cutscene into fight. I was not aware we were employing stunt doubles in this production. But regardless, Linoone would eventually fall, causing the guild members to retreat. Illya and Kyle were then free to climb out of the hole and head further into the clearing to watch Hippopotas evolve. What the hell? Kyle, you dunce, you can't evolve, stop wasting our time and go home. Illya and Kyle's home will no longer be the guild, however, as they've completed the graduation exam and are no longer shackled to the place. Except financially, the guild's still gonna take a cut of all Team Bugfish profits until the end of time. The duo's new home base will now be one of the coolest places in Pokemon franchise history, the cave inside the mouth of Sharpedo Bluff. Besides the address change, however, Team Bugfish will still be operating as they always have, chatting up townsfolk, drinking an unhealthy amount of juice, accepting rescue jobs, reporting the shopkeeper to the authorities for trafficking unborn children, and exploring odd dungeons. For example, upon entering the 14th floor of this dungeon, a horde of wild Pokemon were just hanging out in the adjacent room. Normally, this high concentration of enemy Pokemon only occurs during a monster house, but no, this time they all just spawned in like that, and promptly began filing out of the room like they're all heading home after the bar closed. What a weird bug, but not the craziest thing I've seen in this randomizer. Anyway, Illya can now pick up some of the items lying around before moving on to What? If this is the actual monster house, then what were all those Pokemon from before? As you can see, things are not good. Ilya is now trapped deep behind enemy lines, while Kyle and this poor, hapless escort client have to fight their way through a hallway of stragglers from the first horde. Fortunately, Ilya can just pop a vanish seed into her mouth and turn invisible, allowing her to slip past the unsuspecting mob, reunite with Kyle in the hallway, and escape one of the strangest incidents I've ever witnessed in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. By the way, the whole reason we even visited that dungeon in the first place was because of this strange mission, whose reward just says poke. Not an exact number of Pokedollars, just the word poke. What exactly does that mean? This motherfucker just scammed us! Team Bugfish entered the local cafe ready to pound through another 20 rounds of drinks when they happened upon an exciting announcement. That's right, they heard all about the Toad's Lane Pokedoku puzzle. Pokedoku is a daily puzzle game where you fill in a grid using Pokemon that match specific categories. Every day a new puzzle will drop, and the game even tracks every Pokemon you've ever used in a handy Pokedex. You can even find shinies! And you can complete my special Pokedoku puzzle right now, assuming you're watching this video on the day it releases. This is not a paid sponsorship, by the way. Jill from Pokedoku just reached out to see if I wanted to have my own featured puzzle, and as a former daily player myself, I couldn't refuse the opportunity. So go, complete my Pokedoku puzzle. All the answers are channel fan favorites, like the money. Do it, I'm not letting you out of this room until you finish my puzzle, got it? Anyway, there's another big announcement. A survey team commissioned using the proceeds from the cafe's item recycling shop has discovered a village of Shaman at the base of Sky Peak. And by Sky Peak, I meant to say Cloudy Slum. And by village of Shaman, I meant village of Grumpig. But Grumpig does make for a somewhat decent guide as we scale the mountain in search of a supposed treasure at the summit. Sky Peak is split into 10 zones, each separated by a rest station, and every zone and station sports a different name. I won't be covering every single floor of every single dungeon in this playthrough though, just the highlights, because frankly, Illya and Kyle are so powerful now that they trivialize most threats. And the rich just keep getting richer, because upon hitting level 37, Illya learned Spike Cannon. Multi-hit moves are uniquely powerful in the Mystery Dungeon games, because instead of 2 to 5 weak hits like in the mainline games, there are more like 2 to 5 full-powered attacks that cost a single power point to use. Oh, and Spike Cannon has insane range and continues even after the initial target faints. Basically, Illya just added a machine gun to her already vast arsenal of weapons. The only things that can throw Illya and Kyle for a loop at this point are foes with the Liquid Ooze ability to punish Ilya's leech life, bizarro Pokemon like Teeter Dance, Destiny Bond Piplup, or filthy pigs. See, at the midpoint of Sky Peak, a big commotion broke out and escalated into a full-scale brawl, involving Team Bugfish, Grumpig, the Mountain Survey Team, and 5 elephants in the room. This turned out to be a much harder battle than it initially seemed. The Survey Team formed a wall in front of the Dawn fan, inadvertently blocking Kyle from firing off water pulses right away and making him have to wrap around the pile. But even worse, each of the 5 Dawn fan packed ominous wind to hit Grumpig hard and potentially boost all of their stats. Oh yeah, and the Survey Team's Pidgeotto had magnitude too, as if things weren't complicated enough. This wasn't so much a battle as it was, can Grumpig stay alive long enough for Illya and Kyle to mop up this mess? The answer was yes, but only after many missed spike cannons, many tanked ominous winds, and innumerable reviver seeds wasted. Thank you for that. Pig. The Donphan clan wasn't the only boss battle in this dungeon either. At the summit of Sky Peak, Team Bugfish discovered sludge and slime coating the once grassy clearing, with the Pokemon responsible soon slinking into view. In the vanilla game, it was Grimer and Muck, which makes their randomized replacements all the more ironic. This boss battle was just as laborious as the Donphan fight. Each of the Caterpie had Twin Needle to threaten the deadweight named Grumpig, and just as the fight was wrapping up, Kyle got hit by Meganium's substitute and got turned into a decoy. In the Mystery Dungeon games, a decoy will prevent all allies in the room from taking damage until the decoy is dealt with, either by knocking it out or cleansing the status effect. But when Meganium turned Kyle into a decoy, it also temporarily flipped his allegiance, meaning Kyle is now considered a foe. This means a few things. A, Kyle can now be targeted by Illya, Grumpig, or one of the survey team members, and B, Kyle's bodyguard IQ skill, which forces him to take damage instead of a low HP ally, now triggers for the enemy. So when Illya fired a spike cannon at a low health enemy, Kyle the decoy tanked the hit and nearly got buried by his own teammate's attack. However, I soon remembered that heal seeds can cleanse the decoy status, and once Kyle was cured of being a marketable plushie, he and Illya wrapped up the fight quite handily. The Meganium and Caterpie dispersed, and Grumpig turned into a Dyson to suck up all the gunk, revealing the true treasure of Sky Peak. This is the second time now that a supposed treasure turned out to just be a good view. And if you're wondering how we're gonna get back down to the base of the mountain, don't worry. worry, Grumpig's got that covered as well. There's probably a pig flying joke here somewhere. I'll let you guys make it. At this point, most of the main story missions are gonna come from talking to random townsfolk, such as this Rampardos, who recalled the tale of the legendary Porygon Z. Once a world-famous explorer decades prior, Porygon, the last letter of the alphabet, went missing in the critical fairground and hasn't been seen since. No rescue team has ever braved the dungeon's harsh environments, but since Team Bugfish did a little world-saving that one time, Rampardos assumes they could be up to the task of locating the long-lost explorer. And Rampardos was correct. Blizzard Island, aka the critical fairground, was no match for the dynamic duo. Dungeon was still pretty wild though. For one, the team picked up not one but 2 Manaphy eggs while exploring. These eggs cannot be sent to storage however, and since it's still a bit early in the story to actually acquire the eggs, all Team Bugfish could do was sell one of the Manaphy eggs and trade the other in for a scratch ticket. The critical fairground was also intriguing due to the numerous legendary Pokemon roaming about, including Mew, Entei, Giratina Origin Form, and Ho-Oh. It's always a treat to see a legendary randomly in a dungeon, though I never go in expecting one of them to join the team. Unfortunately, this Ho-Oh is only level 6. At the end of the critical fairground awaited a giant crevice that led to a second dungeon called You save the world one time and suddenly all the dungeons decide that they're funny guys. At the end of that cavernous crevice, or Ligmentus Reef, was the missing explorer encased in a block of ice. Trust me, that's actually Porygon Z. A dastardly soul rock revealed itself to be responsible for the ice sculpture and tried attacking Illya and Kyle, but got splattered across the wall like a splotch of paint. See, I told y'all it was actually Porygon Z, who thanked Team Bugfish for freeing him by bestowing them the Secret rank, which does 2 things. First, it adds a neat little star beside the Rescue Team badge. Second, and more importantly, it unlocks the optional 7 Treasures quest, which consists of 7 special missions to retrieve each of the treasures from a grueling dungeon by defeating a legendary Pokemon. However, Team Bugfish will not be completing any of these special missions because they already have all 7 of the treasures. Remember, items are randomized. It wasn't uncommon to find the 7 treasures just lying around on the floor like dirty laundry. Burmy can't stop talking about some place called the Stupid Convent, so that's where Illya and Kyle are headed next. But first, what even is a convent? Oh, so Burmy doesn't just hate religion, huh? Burmy also hates women? Illya continues to prove that she's the most powerful female in the Pokemon world when she hits level 41 and learns Flame Wheel. She now has a juiced up stab move with healing, a straight line attack, a multi-hit straight line attack, and a strong coverage move that can hit through corners. Throw in all her insane IQ skills and you could argue she's even more deadly than the legendary Pokemon flanking her. But regardless of her raw strength, there is still one task that eludes Illya, being a part of a nuclear family. See, Illya and Kyle picked up an egg from the convent and brought it back home, where it soon hatched into an adorable baby Manaphy. Respectfully, Kyle, I disagree. Credit where credit's due, however, he and Illya do make for decent parents. They fed the baby gummies, took it to the beach, and even taught it some English. But unfortunately, this harmonious setup couldn't last. As the guild's head of intelligence Vulpix stated, the baby was meant to be raised in the sea, not on dry land, and sure enough, baby Pinsir soon fell deathly ill, necessitating a visit to the brilliant scrub to fetch some medicine.
Miss!
Illya and Kyle eventually discovered a pack of cute Rampardos, but their happy playtime is soon interrupted by the arrival of their natural predator. Yeah, this is the best thing the randomizer has done, bar none. But as you would imagine, a lowly Spheal is no match for Team Bugfish, soon rolling out of there with its tail tucked between its legs. The overly cutesy Rampardos thanked our protagonist by gifting them some of their dew, which was actually the special medicine needed to cure Pinsir of its illness. However, the fact remains, this is no place to raise a Pinsir. With Vulpix's help, Illya and Kyle get into contact with someone who can raise Pinsir properly, in an aquatic environment, an Aerodactyl. I'm starting to think y'all just want this Pinsir to die. But regardless, this is where we'll have to say goodbye to little baby Pinsir. We may have only known you for like a couple of days, but man, were those days fun. We even got to meet the big bad hilarious Spheal thanks to you, albeit indirectly. Take care and grow strong, Pinsir. You got any final parting words for Illya and Kyle? What the fuck? Oh, well, that was fun. Anyways, what's the next dungeon on the docket for our bug and fish duo, huh? Oh, fuck.
Yes, sirree. Thought about killing myself.
Team Charm, the strongest female-only exploration team in the land, is visiting the guild. They consist of 2 Riolu and a Tangela. They're going on an expedition to Aegis Cave and want additional help, so Illya and Kyle decide to tag along and Alright, I can't do this anymore. You saw the title card for this segment. I hate Aegis Cave. I hate it so much I'm technically dead naming it right now, but whatever, I don't care. Aegis Cave consists of 3 chambers with 3 floors each, and then 1/4 final chamber with 4 floors, which doesn't sound too bad. It is. You see, Aegis Cave has a unique gimmick. Most of the wild Pokemon in this dungeon are unknown, who sometimes drop letter-shaped stones. To progress from one chamber to the next, you need to collect stones that spell out certain words: ice, rock, and steel in that order. This is a reference to the legendary titans Regice, Regirock, and Registeel, who appear as bosses in the vanilla version of this dungeon. This is also the worst gimmick in the history of the Mystery Dungeon series. Not only do you have to cross your fingers and pray that the specific unknown you're looking for shows up, but you then have to pray that it'll actually drop the damn stone at all. You're gonna be running around the same floor, KOing wild unknown over and over and over again, hoping that the layers upon layers of RNG outside your control will eventually go your way. This is tedious and utterly mind-numbing. But you might say, oh, this is the one dungeon in the randomizer where the wild Pokemon haven't been changed. Yeah, well, the original encounter table already included non-unknown Pokemon to further waste your time, and while the Pokemon haven't been randomized, their abilities have. I love being unable to click Leech Life in the off chance the unknown might randomly have Liquid Ooze. I love getting sent right back to the start of the respective chamber after not finding all the stones I need. I love spending so long running around the same floor that the mysterious wind starts blowing. If Aegis Cave was a person, I'd be in prison for first-degree murder. Thankfully, all the Regis got randomized into pushovers who could be swept aside with ease, and the army of Pokemon awaiting at the end weren't much of a problem either. Without any Lightning Rod users to worry about, Kyle could fire off his patented Vacuum Charge combo to annihilate every single Hitmontop and Cyndaquil in the room on turn 1. As for Milotic, well, Ilya's got something special planned for the master of Aegis Cave. A taste of its own medicine. Die! Welp, that dungeon sucked. Not even the randomizer could salvage it. But now that my torture session is complete, it's about time our 2 protagonists return to suffering as well.
Nightmare, 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 nightmare.
You can't do that.
During one stormy evening, Illya and Kyle reminisce about how much time has passed since they saved the world. Later that night, Illya experiences an odd dream where a Ralt appears to tell her that she's the reason the world will be destroyed. Apparently, Ilya's presence in this world as a former human has caused a distortion in the fabric of space, and that distortion has begun expanding at a rate that could potentially plunge the world into ruin. But before Ralts can elaborate further, the internet cuts out and Ralts disconnects. The following morning, Shellos from the guild rushes over with horrible news. Little Alakazam, whom Illya and Kyle once rescued, is in trouble once again, but this time it's even more dire. He's been trapped in an eternal nightmare and can't wake up. Are we sure he's actually asleep? To cure Alakazam of his ailment, we required the aid of a former foe, Victreebel. The same Pokemon who once kidnapped little Alakazam has atoned for his crimes and done what all soul-searching middle-aged men do: go to Thailand. After retrieving him from the Doi Mei Sarong, Victreebel identifies Alakazam's nightmare as a dungeon itself and transports Illya and Kyle inside so they can investigate. There are no walls in this dungeon, meaning treasures usually hidden within said walls are now sitting in plain view. And since Illya has the all-terrain hiker IQ skill, she can just float over the void and snag those treasures. Illya can even skip entire floors if she wants by disregarding the pathways and just bolting it straight for the stairs. Again, the only real threat to Team Bugfish at this point is forced escort missions or teeter dance. At the deepest depths of the nightmare, Illya and Kyle encounter Ralts again, who has actually been appearing in both of their dreams. Ralts tells them that they're both responsible for the expanding distortion in the fabric of space and claims that the only way to solve it is to get rid of the duo for good. Guys, this Ralts is like 2 feet tall, just punt it away and get it over with. Victreebel checks in on the gang before Ralts can make any sort of move, forcing it to retreat while Illya and Kyle return back to the real world empty-handed. Little Alakazam still stuck doing jumping jacks, and now Illya and Kyle are stuck with a sense of unease and dread. Being told that you don't belong in this world after sacrificing so much to save it must be rough. But Illya brings up a good point. When she found out she was going to disappear after beating Primal Pineco, she accepted it because there was a clear goal and outcome laid out before her. Beat the big bad, put the time gears into their spots, and resume the flow of time. Meanwhile, Ralts' claims are uncertain and unclear, and thus just don't sit right. Something is afoot, and Team Bugfish needs answers. They try asking Wingull, the Hidden Land guide, but Wingull doesn't know much more about the whole distortion of space than they do. All Wingull can give is a name, Huntail, the controller of space who Illya and Kyle will have to look into tomorrow after they sleep on things. Wake up! In this randomized world, Huntail controls space, not Palkia, and Huntail just teleported straight into Team Bugfish's base, accused them of conspiring to destroy the world, then kidnapped them to its lair, the Sacred Trenches. Man, what a terrible morning. Huntail corners Illya and Kyle ready to strike, but thanks to random dungeon generation, the pit behind them is now a body of water, which makes this whole interaction much more humorous. Kyle, what do you mean nothing is behind you? Did you forget you're the CEO of water? Illya and Kyle escape Huntail's grasp and sprint through the Sacred Trenches for a way out, only to end up at a dead end and being forced to take on Huntail anyway. The fight initially looks rough when Illya throws a drop ice seed that somehow fails, but a couple of leech lives and vacuum charge combos swiftly settle the score. Huntail faints and a mysterious voice suddenly reveals Huntail's been inflicted with a nightmare just like Alakazam, and that Illya and Kyle have gotta hop inside to investigate. This turns out to be a trap as Ralts pops back in to finish the job of eliminating Illya and Kyle once and for all. But due to the immense amount of talking Ralts does and some of the holes in its explanations, Huntail realizes that Illya and Kyle aren't as bad as Ralts made them out to be. Just as Illya surmised earlier, something is sus about all of this. That is when a second Ralts appears, the actual Ralts, who dispels the illusion and reveals that it was none other than the nefarious Darkrai who had been... It was none other than the nefarious Stantler who has been pulling the strings all along. See, Stantler can create realistic illusions via nightmares, which is how it communicated to Illya, Kyle, and Huntail under the disguise of Ralts. Stantler attempted to gaslight all of them into believing Illya and Kyle were behind the widening distortion in the fabric of space as an excuse to eliminate the duo for good. This is Stantler's second attempt to do so actually. The first attempt, of course, was by removing the time gears and nearly causing the world's paralysis. Basically every major plot beat in the story was secretly orchestrated by Stantler, who now challenges Illya and Kyle to a duel at the deepest depths of the ludicrous marsh before vanishing, leaving Illya, Kyle, and Ralts to travel back to the real world. Ralts assures the main duo that the distortion in space caused by their time travel shenanigans is minuscule, especially in comparison to the actual ever-expanding distortion caused by Stantler that it tried to pin on them. In other words, Illya and Kyle are not mistakes and do have a reason to keep existing in this world. That reason, of course, is kicking Stantler's butt. This is it, the final showdown. Illya and Kyle descend upon the ludicrous marsh with the useless carry-on known as Ralts weighing them down. This dungeon would test Team Bugfish with every challenge they've faced thus far. Forced escorts, decoys, whatever this is. But Illya and Kyle persevered, eventually coming face to face with Stantler, who revealed all. It was Stantler who attacked Illya and Carvanha when they traveled back to the past to save the world, with Illya shielding Carvanha from the hit, thus turning her into an amnesiac Pokemon through timey-wimey shenanigans. Like I said, every problem ever faced can be traced back to this guy. Stantler does the classic villain trope of offering a foe it deems worthy the chance to switch sides, but obviously Illya sees through the ruse and breaks free, forcing Stantler to summon its mightiest minions for battle: Cloyster, Lunatone, Credilli, Goldeen, Starly, and Burmy. These were definitely just the first 6 available guys Stantler could find. Well, at least Burmy is an actual villain. That guy hates women. The final battle begins with a bloodbath as Kyle's patented vacuum charge combo annihilates Lunatone, Goldeen, and Starly on turn 1, while Illya puts a few spikes into Stantler. Illya then finishes off Cloyster with Leech Life, while Kyle completely whiffs his second combo. The enemy begins closing in, but that just allows Illya to land another meaty hit on Stantler, while Kyle misses another vacuum charge combo. Ralts just stands there and looks short. Illya finally finishes off Stantler, and Kyle finally remembers how to land an attack as he offs Credilli the same turn, leaving just Burmy remaining, but the misogynist bug soon gets toppled in an instant, ending the final fight for good. Stantler attempts to escape through a dimensional hole, but Huntail suddenly appears and 360 no-scopes Stantler inside the dimensional hole, shattering the portal and condemning Stantler to basically the same fate as Illya, ending up somewhere random with amnesia. With Stantler defeated, all the loose ends have been tied up. Little Alakazam has awakened from his nightmare, peace has returned to the Pokemon world, and Illya and Kyle can celebrate knowing that they do belong in this world. After all, they are the greatest exploration team of their time. And that is the post-game of Randomized Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Thank you all for watching Team Bugfish's story all the way to the end. And thanks to all the channel members for their continued support. Though I can't help but feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh!